Mississippi River. Marilyn Schultz, also from a town in Louisiana, just 50 miles from Rita's hometown. And me, Gladys Devane, originally from a very tiny town in Texas called Sayers. It's so tiny, it's no longer on the map. Our first encounter as a group, before we became known as the family, was at a dinner at my home. At that dinner, we learned that Ross was going the following week to Boston. And someone said, "Oh, wouldn't it be wonderful to have Boston lobster?" And after several glasses of wine and a little bit of coercion, Ross agreed to bring the lobster. Now, none of us thought that he would really do it, but he did.
I will never forget, Ross called me about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon that Friday when he's returning from Boston. He says, "I've got these expletive lobsters that he was bringing to Bloomington." He says, "What am I going to do with them?" I thought for a minute, oh God, what are we going to do here? Anyway, I said, "Marilyn, she is a partner in Goods Incorporated, so she would know how to cook lobster." So I threw it all on Marilyn. So anyway, I called and she got everything ready, she got the pots ready. So Ross arrives in town, so I told him to come directly to Marilyn's. So we ended up with lobster that night. In fact, that is probably the grandest lobster meal party that we had ever had. And that was the very beginning of our relationship as a family. And from then on, we were just great friends. The group, or the family, grew in size. There were some additions. Dick Good, many of you don't know him, but he was a member. Also, Brother Finsky, he was also a later member. And then Ted and Marsha Bush Jones. And there were other people who were very close to us at that time, but they didn't really know about the family. So that is one of the most appreciative things, and I will always think in terms of Ross.
Well, it was that same evening, 1975, when we met at Gladys's, and I first met Ross, and really first met Jean, too. And we discovered, as all have said, that we had a lot of interest in common. Texas, for example, my family had roots in northeastern Texas and northwestern Louisiana. He was from near Waco, and I'd had a roommate from Waco and had been there many times. Not a lot of Hoosiers could say that. We both graduated from the University of Texas. We both love France, the culture, the language, the countryside, the literature, the food, the wine, especially the wine. We had a lot to talk about, and sometimes even in French. We discovered in our conversation that at the University of Texas, we both took classes in the French department from Catherine Wheatley, a scholar of Racine and an absolute holy terror for her students. So we had a lot of stories there. As Gladys mentioned, we were all Southerners, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, and North Carolina. So a lot of the times when we weren't talking French or French food, we were talking Southern, the food, the culture, the accent. And there was a lot of friendly competition and a lot of jokes, a lot of insulting. We were good at doing that to each other. One evening, we laughed about how Southerners always tended to have lots of prepositions at the ends of their sentences, like, "Come on down here," or "Get up from there." So we spent a lot of time trying to add on to see who could come up with the most prepositions at the end of a sentence. And it was Ross who won. He was talking to his old yellow dog. And he said, "You old dog, get on up from down here, get on up from down in under there." I use that all the time because I keep thinking about it. So Ross, dear friend, what fun we had together. There are just so many good memories, and I know each one of you in the room has a good memory of Ross, and probably it entails a lot of laughing. We add them all together, and they portray a life, as we've heard, of serious study, integrity, work, accomplishment, and also one of wry humor, never-ending curiosity, good fun, and so many good friends. So Ross, today is adieu. Que Dieu te garde.
What no one is telling you is that at that memorable lobster dinner, everybody was afraid to put the lobsters in the pot because we had been told that they would scream. So I drank a glass of wine really fast, not the first one, and grabbed the lobsters and started cramming them into the pots and slammed the lid down on while everybody else ran out of the room. Then everyone else came back into the kitchen, and we decided it would be really fun to have French fries with our lobster. And Marilyn had a new device that made curly-Q potatoes that she had brought home from Goods. So she did all these wonderful curly potatoes, and we threw them in the oil and set the stove on fire. And Marilyn, quite calmly, threw a box of baking soda on it and slammed the lid on the pot, and dinner went on without calling the fire department. That was not necessarily always the case at our dinners, but there were many events of that sort that live in our memories. I have a lot of memories of Ross, some of them touching and some of them funny, but the ones I treasure are of Ross as a traveling companion. It was a pleasure to be in Ross's company on the road. I think one of the reasons I feel that way is that, like me, Ross wanted everything planned in advance. None of this impromptu this or that. When are we going to be there and where are we going to go? And the other reason I treasured my travel with Ross is that he never got snarky when things went wrong. I can remember going to Ravinia with Ross one hot summer day. I don't know where the rest of the family was, out having fun or something, but Ross and I decided to go to Ravinia, so we went. And we missed our stop on the little train that goes from the city out to Ravinia. And when we realized that, we immediately got off and said, what are we going to do? Well, it turned out there wasn't really anything we could do, so we set off walking along the train tracks back to the stop where we should have gotten off. In the hot summer sun, and somehow, I don't know how, we ended up just roaring with laughter by the time we got where we were supposed to be. At which point Ross said, I think we'll take a taxi out to Ravinia. And we did. One summer, David and I joined Ross for a tour of the chateaux of the Loire, led by Ross. We very wisely put ourselves in his hands. He took care of the accommodation in a 15th century chateau, which was the hereditary home of Prince Somebody and his wife, who were running it as a hotel. On the second morning, we got up to a complete absence of hot water. So after cold showers, we assembled in the breakfast room to be told that the boiler had burst overnight. And as we left to go to the chateau of the day, the prince was in the courtyard with his workmen and wearing his rubber boots, assuring us that everything would be fine by dinner time. And somehow Ross made that funny. The cold shower, it took a bit of work. Ross not only found the perfect accommodations, he picked all the restaurants. I have never before or since eaten so well. It was amazing. I don't know how he did it. I treasure every memory of that trip. Ross chose the chateaux to take us to, some of them on the basis of my interest in gardens, but he saved the best one for last. We went to Chenonceau, which was built by one of the kings for his beloved mistress, who was exiled there when the king died, and his wife said, "I don't want to look at your face anymore." But we got there, and I walked up to it, and it's exquisite. It's a small place built out over the waters of the River Loire. And I stopped and said, "Ross, I could live here." He said, "I know, it's the river." He remembered that I had grown up on a river. I have so many memories like that of Ross, and knowing him is such a source of remembered pleasure. I'm filled with gratitude for having known him. Now, I have two more things to say. I can't leave yet.
Okay.
Are you going to say something?
See, and they wouldn't let me talk. I had to say one incident with Ross, but
Aren't
they
you
stole
used
the
to it?
whole show.
Aren't
Yeah,
you
right.
used to it?
I just want to let you know that there are more things I can talk about.
You took my page.
That's what you get with
Gladys took my page. No,
Okay.
here it is. Gladys took my teleprompter. Outside of Ross's career and his membership in this rather unusual group, Ross's two great interests were classical music and international travel. He was proud to support the Indiana University School of Music, and he boasted to anyone who would listen anywhere in the world of the quality of the music program at IU. In his mementos were several letters from grateful music students he had supported in their studies, and there are many of us who know much more about classical music today than we would have known had we not known Ross. And finally, Ross's family wants to especially thank the staff at Meadowood Health Pavilion for their dedicated care of Ross over the last 2 years. Ross was fortunate to have a great many friends who continued to express their friendship even after his health declined after his accident in 2013. And all of us have memories of Ross that we carry in our minds, and I'm adding a yellow Volkswagen to mine.
Cielo,
Thank you. That was so beautiful. Yvonne and Louis have asked me to express their sincere appreciation, gratitude, and thanks to all of you for your kindness and love